and welcome to Autistically Unapologetic, the unfiltered and unmasked podcast about everything autism. Here's your host, Devin Morrissey.
Hi, and welcome to Autistically Unapologetic with me, Devin Morrissey. I would like to officially welcome everyone to episode 14, where today I will be ending Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month by talking about one of my all-time favorite things in the world, music. Now, those of you who do not know, music was my first language, as I was nonverbal until the time I was around 2 or 3 years old, and as a result, it became the backbone of so much I have accomplished in my life so far, and it is the backbone of all that I have yet to achieve. Music is a passion of so many autistic individuals, such as that of my next guest. You might recognize my next guest from his viral TikTok videos and as a contestant on American Idol. He is going to be sitting down with me and sharing memories of his time on the show and telling us about his current tour. Please welcome to Autistically Unapologetic, Adin Boyer. Well, Adin, first and foremost, I want to thank you for coming on to this particular episode, which is all about music and about your journey as a musician on the autism spectrum. I really appreciate you coming on and talking a lot about your journey, since your journey, I think, is so inspiring. And I think that it's something that I think needs to be talked about more.
I'm excited to be here.
It's an absolute
Devin,
pleasure. So usually when I do an episode like this, I usually start off by asking about, when did you first find out, Adin, that you were autistic, and what was your reaction to that?
So I was diagnosed when I was 2. I had very stereotypical autism characteristics, especially at that time. Under the DSM-4, it was known at the time as PDD-NOS. But my family didn't officially sit me down and tell me until I was 12. They had the big talk with me about everything. It was in the same conversation as where do babies come from, so just sitting down there as a 12-year-old, all these, kind of new pieces of information got put onto me. And at the time, autism was obviously seen very, very differently. So, and it was still very misunderstood. So the way that it was phrased to me at the time was, you have a slight tinge of autism. That's not how it works, but at the time it was the closest way that, I could understand that. A lot of people, especially those who are diagnosed later, talk about how finding out they have autism is a huge relief for them. They've internalized so much of, why am I so different? And they've just been longing to figure it out for so long. And I definitely knew that I was different from other people, but for me, it was an absolute slap in the face, because I was still really, really internalizing a lot of, the ableism that I had from people bullying me up until that point. And I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. That's why I was bullied so much, and that's why, people hate me just for existing and whatnot. So that was really, rough, and I definitely did not accept the news at first. Very, very happy that I found out when I did, especially given the time frame I grew up in. Obviously, if a lot of, younger children these days are being told they have autism earlier, and I think that it's definitely much more appropriate in this day and age. But if we're talking, over a decade ago, it was definitely harder.
I definitely can relate to you on so many levels of that. I found out that I was autistic around the same age as you, and it is tough at that age when you're literally having to figure out not only who you are as a person. We're entering our teenagers, and on top of that, we're like, wait, it makes sense, but I need time to internalize this. This isn't just going to be internalized overnight. This isn't going to be one trip over the rainbow, then everything's going to be fine. No, it takes a while. So I really applaud you for speaking that, because autism is not just a one-night thing. It's a lifelong journey into really acknowledging yourself for who you are, and I applaud you for that. Tell me a little bit about your life growing up. What was that like for you as a child on the autism spectrum?
The way I kind of describe it to people is it's very, very cliche in a lot of ways, but it's also very, very unique in a lot of ways. The cliche part is with kind of my lifelong love of music, and how all my life
Yes.
I've always wanted to be a musician. Stories like that are pretty cliche. Straight out of a Disney movie. I had a lifelong dream. Blah blah blah. All my life, I've found my passion. I've known what I wanted to be when I grow up. But also there is a major sense of uniqueness to it as well. Being an only child, growing up. Bullied majorly in elementary school, but then having room to absolutely flourish in middle and high school, going to a very kind of school, being a highly classically trained singer-songwriter is also pretty unique. I found I thought more people would be in the situation that I was in growing up with music theory and intense classical training as singer-songwriters, but I found out, especially when I was on Idol, that that's not the case. There are so many aspects of both the cliche part and both the unique part that I could go on and on and on about. But I definitely am very happy with how I grew up, and I definitely consider myself very, very privileged. And I would not.
It's really awesome to hear that you would not trade your experience for anything, because there's a lot of people out there that feel like they could have lived life a lot differently, just given the diagnosis and given the situations that they were put in growing up. But I like to say that don't live with regrets, because regrets are the mistakes that you can't correct, or they're the lessons that you don't learn from. And I feel like for the both of us, every lesson that we've learned and every mistake we've corrected. So we don't look back with shame or guilt, like, oh, I wish I would have done this differently, because it's made us stronger and it got us to this side where we're both very happy in our lives. And I know that with music for you, it has played a really significant part in your life now, which I have gotten to learn over the last few months. So tell me a little bit about what actually got you into music in the first place. What was your inspiration to start singing and songwriting? Was it a certain musical genre that you had growing up? Was it a certain musician that inspired you to make your own music? I'm really curious to know this.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little, like I said, it's a little cliche, but it's also a little unique. Um, for me, music came more naturally to me than any other aspect of communication, and my family took note of that. Saw it in my ability to identify pitches of notes just by hearing them. They an absolute pitch. They saw it with how fascinated I was with music and how much I would enjoy fiddling around with the piano, singing to myself. And my parents are pretty artsy themselves. My dad is a musician, trombonist himself, and him and my mom were both in the arts for a very long time, and naturally, I had to end up getting that exposure. So they saw. I think they saw what music did for me before I saw what it did for me, especially in my earlier years. With the piano lessons and whatnot, a lot of kids, want to quit, and I can't lie, especially earlier in my, years of learning piano, I definitely wanted to quit. The fine skills and the gross motor skills, are a challenge, and hand-eye coordination, etc. But they saw more of the positive effects that things like that really had for me, and before I got to, and I think finally once I got to this new school. For middle school, that's when I began to realize, man, I don't.
Thank God you did it. Thank God you did it.
I very much am so proud to have had that upbringing. I always had a natural inclination to music, but I've always kind of composed little things in my head, but I didn't really feel my true musical identity until I discovered Coldplay, and that was when I was about 12 years old. Yeah, me too. I mean, like I said, there's so much great music that I grew up with in my childhood from my parents' CDs.
Oh my God, Radio Disney
stuff like
literally raised me in so many ways, more than one. I kid you not. It was like the Britneys, the Christinas, the Backstreets, the NSYNCs. I honestly, my biggest dream growing up was to be the sixth member of the Backstreet Boys, but obviously, as we all knew, that was never going to happen. But Radio Disney was where it's. And actually, speaking of Coldplay, you actually got to see them in Pasadena, right?
I have seen
Really?
them in
What tours
Pasadena
did you
twice.
see them for?
The first time I saw them was in 2016 for my
Oh.
16th birthday on their Head Full of and that was I did for those who know me from American Idol know that I briefly talked about the amount of grueling preparation it took to be able to handle that
Yes.
concert and how it turned into one of my life. Um, and uh, and I just from that point on I was just mesmerized and I was on top of the world and it was already at a major transformational period in my life in later high school when I started to really begin to truly accept myself, make friends, etc., and continue to find more of my musical identity. That was around the time I started writing songs as well. And so the second time I saw Coldplay was this past
Wow.
September 30th, either September 30th or from a personal invitation
Wait,
from
are
Chris
you
Martin. Got really
serious?
to
You
see
got a
him on the
personal
side.
invitation from the Chris Martin of Coldplay to come to his show. Wow.
Yeah, basically. Well, I mean, the personal invitation was from the Coldplay team, but I had been corresponding with Chris Martin. I mean, not officially. Had sent me a video of support after I
Yes.
had covered one of their songs on my American Idol, and I never got to meet him or meet any of the band or meet anybody on the Coldplay team while I was there. But it was
One
just
of
an
these
honor to be there and to
days,
be close and to
it needs to happen. I actually had the chance to go to a Coldplay concert myself when I was a senior in high school. It was without a doubt one of the most surreal nights because you get these light up bands, and I kid you not, it turns into like this LED light show, which is so unbelievable. You're just like, am I at the right concert? It really is.
like
And
no
speaking
other.
of people
And
like no other, you actually started releasing music comedy videos on TikTok in 2020 when the world was shut down due to COVID. And you actually gained the acclaim and praise of big name musicians such as Lizzo and Charlie Puth. That is unbelievable. What was your reaction to the widespread international attention that you got from making these videos?
yeah, the comedy videos on TikTok were definitely a major point of growth for me in my life. It was very exciting, of course. And, I've been longing for that goal of exposure
Yes.
through my music since I started position in general. With not only as a singer songwriter, but when I was composing classically too. I wanted that exposure. I wanted my art to reach other people. So that was like the first time that I felt like I began to reach people outside of just my immediate circle, which was really amazing. It was a great motivator to stay optimistic and keep myself energized. It was a great outlet for me, especially during that time of major
Mhm.
change. And I I was also still in college at that point, so I was already in the all the time. So I was just kind of spending so much time on my piano, and it was really really good for me. I was also starting to lose interest in practicing
Really?
classical tunes too. Good way to kind of transition to a different route while using all those same techniques and still keeping my chops going classically and virtuosically. And the fact that people liked it so much was really great. It really kept me going. It was the kind of preparation that I needed for
Yes.
Idol ultimately, and it really. I don't know if I would have been able to survive Idol if I hadn't had some sense of exposure to the limelight of reaching so many people first. And I'm very 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 happy that interacting with all these new people and navigating about how all these strangers
Yes.
respond to you. You learn about how what your
Hmm.
identity is as a creator, but also what people are looking for, the kind of things that seem to do well, go viral, reach people, um, you know, and it was it was definitely a great point of insight and a great point of growth as well. There are definitely some videos I made on TikTok that I won't say I regret because we particularly the proudest of. That not just with piano comedies, but with other stuff and like autism advocacy stuff. I've grown in just so many ways in my views on autism and the kind of stuff that I want to make that reaches people and lifts people up. So it was really
I
really
couldn't
good for
be
me.
more thrilled for you. Now, and speaking of American Idol, a lot of people out here that are listening to this podcast right now recognize you from American Idol. You won the hearts of Lionel Richie, Katy Perry, and Luke Bryan, who commented on your piano playing as one of the best piano playing he's ever heard since doing the show. What inspired you to try out for a show that has literally launched the careers of big names such as Kelly Clarkson, Chris Daughtry, Carrie Underwood, and Jennifer Hudson?
How I got started with American Idol is actually a little unexpected for a lot of people. Because if I'm being completely honest, I never.
Wait, are you serious?
Growing up, I never. I'm serious. Yeah, no. Like I said, this is the thing that surprises a lot of people. I never watched the show growing up. I never really cared for that kind of thing. Ultimately, I was cast for the show on 2 separate occasions by 2 separate people on 2 separate times. And, of course, the first time I declined it for the same reasons I mentioned to you. I didn't really care that much about the show. I had these, preconceived notions, which are still, quite true in a lot of ways about how reality shows can skew the truth and make you look inauthentic or maybe even infantilize someone like me. And so I had my first. The first casting producer had reached out to me during my last semester of college. I was still living up north of LA, and my friend was driving me down to Santa Monica Promenade so I could go get some extra money through street performance. And lo and behold, I got an email later that night after my very first night street performing in Santa Monica. I didn't even really perform there for a long time. I was still getting used to the atmosphere. And she said, hey, I just saw you performing in Santa Monica. We'd love for you to, potentially hop on American Idol and go through a few screenings in hopes that we can get you in front of the judges. And at first I didn't believe it, because it didn't make sense that things like that would happen so quickly. Yeah, I guess it was a bit too good to be true. But I still had my reservations, that I had mentioned before, and also it was not a very good timing for me because I was still finishing my last semester of college. My goal was to graduate and then go to the studio and record my debut EP. And that's what ended up happening. This is early 2022. And it was really, really important for me, to kind of start to figure out what next after I graduated. And so I did not have the time or the mental capacity for something like that, and I didn't really think anything of it. I just was. I did not want to go the talent show route. I really did not. So then, fast forward to summer of 2022. I still kind of had that niche internet micro celebrity status from TikTok comedy videos and whatnot. But my singer-songwriter videos that I had posted were not doing well. I lost all my audience retention. That's why most people know me from Idol and not from TikTok these days. Even though I have arguably way more followers on TikTok for that one account. But somehow someone found me on Instagram, sent me a DM saying the exact same thing that the first casting producer had sent me. And I was like, of course, thinking,
like, why do they keep emailing me about this stuff? If I said no, I mean no.
Yeah. But also, that made me think that there were so many casting producers for American Idol. I was like, wow, there's got to be like hundreds of people just scouring the country, just going on these deep internet searches, trying to find these people who would be suitable for the show. And, I checked out this person, and he seemed legit, and so I looked into it further. I was then curious, of course, how many casting directors actually are there actually? Turns out there are only 10. So there are only 10 people actively seeking out people all over the country looking for the next American Idol, basically. And I already had 2 out of 10 of those people find me and think that I would be a good fit for the show. That's when I had to do some serious consideration. That's when I had to really start thinking. I'm like, I mean, I think I need to just go for it. And if I'm being completely honest, I didn't really take it super seriously until after my audition. And of course, I also felt guilty. One of my other reservations was I never watched the show. I'm taking a spot away from somebody who's dreamt their whole life of being the next American Idol. That's what I had thought, right? I'm just going to go on there, and if they meld me into someone I'm not, whatever. Whatever. I can clarify that on Instagram. I'm old enough. Whatever. I didn't think I was actually going to get aired. Like I said, I didn't take it too seriously, and I felt a bit guilty about that. But at the same time, the exposure was something that I needed, and it was, and I thought, oh man, I could meet some great people, some great new connections with people. Who knows what could happen if I end up, chatting with Lionel Richie, Katy Perry, or Luke Bryan, or so many of these other, contestants and whatnot. So it was something that I thought,
Thank God you did. Thank God you did. I do know the feeling about reservations. When I did another little show called Love on the Spectrum US, I had reservations going about it because I'm like, okay, if they set my friend up to look like an idiot on national TV, I'm going to be angry as hell. But no, it turned out to be an incredible experience. And just like with you and American Idol, the response to Love on the Spectrum was so massive. It was incredible. So I actually want to take you back to a part of your season when Lionel, Katy, and Luke told you that you did not make it into the top 24. Now, I gotta be honest, I was super saddened for you because I honestly thought that you deserved to go so much further than you did. But Lionel proposed to write a song with you. Did you ever get a chance to write a song with him? And if so, has it been released, or when will we get to hear this wonderful song that you two worked on together?
That is definitely the most commonly asked question. On the edge of their seat, really, really wanting to know the answer to that question. I wish I could tell you we are, but no, nothing's happened yet. I actually waited a year, and I didn't think, too much of it. I tried not to think about it too much. I'm like, oh, he's probably busy. I'm like, but man, it would be pretty cool if that still happened. So I tried reaching out to him. I tried reaching out to the American Idol team again through their email addresses, following up a few times, and I've heard nothing. So I will say this, though. I want to make it abundantly clear that I love Lionel Richie dearly. He is truly one of the best people I've ever met. Not just one of the best celebrities I've ever met, but the best people I have ever met. And I'm already so fulfilled by the things that he said about me on the show and the kind of things that he did for me on this show and the kind of things that he saw in me on this show. And I am already so fulfilled that if me writing a song with him never happens, I won't be too mad about it.
The fact that you were able to even have that experience and gain the admiration and respect of Lionel Richie, I think that is a fulfillment in itself. And the fact that you went on there to inspire and motivate, that's a bigger fulfillment in itself at all. And what I really enjoyed about your time on American Idol is how open you are to being autistic. In fact, I did some research. People that know me and know my podcast, that I do research for each guest that comes on. And you are actually the latest autistic contestant to come on the show and actually make it to the Hollywood round on the show. And you're following in the footsteps of fellow autistic contestants like James Durbin and Sam Finelli. What does it mean for you to leave your mark on American Idol in terms of autism and inclusion?
It really means a lot. And I'm trying my best not to lose sight of that. Sometimes my internalized ableism still gets in the way. Sometimes I still hate myself, and sometimes I still have very bad days. I had a horrible day yesterday, for example. Things like that. It was times like that that I just that I try to remind myself that people actually do care and people actually see something in me, and I'm seen as a good person, um, and it gives me a lot of hope, if, for example, as I had mentioned earlier, reality shows do have a tendency to skew the truth.
They do.
Now, if reality shows, which are known for their inauthenticity and skewing the truth, can portray someone like me as authentically as they did, then I think we're on the right path. I'm perfectly happy with how they portrayed me. I have absolutely zero qualms with anybody from the show, zero complaints. I am truly, truly happy with everything they showed, and I give consent to all of it. I don't feel exploited. So if I can leave a show like that, thinking that of American Idol, then we're on the right path for other people. I think, and you had talked about how you're happy with how they showed you and Danny Bowman on Love on the Spectrum.
Yes,
we're on the right path, and there's reason to be optimistic.
Now, we have something in common besides music, Adin. We are both very strong advocates for autism and anti-bullying. How does music for you play a part in your advocacy?
Music is ultimately my means to function, for me. And that could sound cliche, but it truly is, because people say, music's my therapy, music's my everything. I love music, man. Music's everything to me. But for me, music is truly my means to function. It is my means to exist. And when I had the space to go out and pursue that special interest, and that by definition is what a special interest is. It's not just an interest. It's not just something that people love. It's something that is truly a means as to function for somebody and to connect with other people.
Yes.
Music is how I grew and became the person I am today. Music ultimately helped me to become an astronomically better communicator than I could have ever been without it. Better person, better everything. It was my means to function, and it is my means to grow. So the thing that gave me the ultimate access to all of that was having space. And by space, I mean not having to think about trying to filter out all these bullies. And
Yes.
I was speaking quite a few times. I was actually in Wisconsin a couple weeks ago, and I was sharing this story that, a lot of people are like, oh, bullying helped me, actually, or bullying, was good for me, and things like that, or like it gave me thicker skin, things like that. And while I definitely do think that, do somewhat believe in the, thicker skin thing and how, it can definitely make you, things like that can definitely make you stronger. I think that having space to grow makes you way stronger. Having space to flourish makes you way stronger to me. And the thing that gave me the space was not having to think about dealing with these bullies. So
fantastic.
So I mentioned that to the kids, and it seemed to really resonate with them. We talk about anti-bullying, and it's kind of become a little bit of a cliche thing that's very a little taboo, and it's like you go and you have an anti-bullying assembly at school. Oh, what good is it going to do? There are anti-bullying assemblies out there that are literally just people riding monster trucks or whatever it may be. But there is true reason behind it, and it's pretty deep. It is that deep, So by sharing what worked for me and how having that space really got me to this point. I think it really resonated with a lot of people, and I hope I can continue to share that.
And you definitely will. And you definitely will. Just given the fact that your story has already touched so many people through your TikTok videos or even through your time on American Idol, it is so acknowledging and it's so inspiring to see of just all the work that you're doing. It's incredible. You got to tell me a little bit about this Regroup tour that you're currently on. It's the second leg of the tour, and I understand that you're kicking this off in June in my hometown of San Francisco. You're going to be performing all throughout California. Ashland and Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, and Reno, Nevada. So for those of you that want to see Adin perform, do yourself a favor and go. You do not want to miss this show. What excites you most about this current Regroup tour that you're currently on?
You know, I honestly, right now, I look forward to I look forward to when, interacting with a bunch of people and loving the video and being able to play with my band is one of the things that I look forward to the most. But I do it even though I don't have much of an audience coming to my shows, and I'm still playing restaurants and dive bars and breweries where most people aren't actively listening. I do it because of, I love traveling. I love just going to new places, living like the locals. There's something that's really, really, really fun and fulfilling about just getting to live another normal life. You know what I mean? And I really just love playing in, no matter the place. I've played in all sorts of venues. I've played in trampoline parks. I've played
Wow.
I played on the back of a moving truck. I've played
And you live
all sorts.
to tell the tale.
I live to tell the tale. Yeah. Was playing on the back of a moving truck, especially during COVID. I really wanted to serenade my neighbors with that, but now I actually got to do that as the grand marshal of my city's 4th of July parade. So, so that was pretty cool. My gig experience has been so unique and so fun, and I don't measure it by the amount of people that are actively listening or the amount of people that were in attendance. I measure it right now by just fulfillment and just doing something that has never been done or is seldom done. And I can't wait until I can grow and actually start to play real music venues with my band, be able to make enough money to sustain this sort of thing fully on my own, even with my band. I'm looking forward to that growth, but you got to start somewhere, and
Yes.
A lot of people have been like, "This is what you're doing since American Idol, playing at trampoline parks where nobody's listening." You know what? Yeah, I mean, I lost my momentum. I was on a show a year ago, and that was how it happened. But I'm still so happy with the exposure it gave me.
Yeah.
It may not have, stuck around too long. I've definitely gained some new fans for life, and huge shout out to them. I read your comments. They mean the world to me.
As they should. And you mean a lot to your fans, Adin. Just saying, you mean a whole lot to your fans, I think, more than you know.
Yeah, I like I said, I try to remind myself that as often as I can. And things like that really keep me going. Just to know that people care really, really keeps me going.
Absolutely. My last question for you, Adin, is this. Now, the music industry is opening its doors to a variety of autistic talent and showcase the talents of Susan Boyle, Cody Lee, and obviously you, of course. What tips of advice would you like to give to all those autistic kids and adults out there who want to pursue a career in singing and songwriting while trying to find their voice?
Before I answer that question, I want to make it clear that I cannot speak on behalf of anybody else on the spectrum.
Yeah.
I truly cannot. And I don't think anybody really can. We see it often. A lot of people on the spectrum say, we do this, we want this, or we need this. But the truth of the matter is autism is too wide of a spectrum to say things like that. My experience has been incredibly unique. I even find it harder to connect with other people on the spectrum because of how different I am from them. The one thing we have in common is a diagnosis. And the diagnosis has those definitions, but I could be living a completely different life from someone else. And I know that I have definitely met people on the spectrum that I could not be more different from them. It's easier for me to actually connect with some neurotypical people more than it is to connect with other people on the spectrum. So I cannot speak on behalf of anybody. So with my advice, I'm only speaking from my experience. So the advice that I would give, I would tell people to take with a grain of salt. But I know that for me is when I've had that space to grow, because I was surrounded by people who gave me a chance and they gave me the space to flourish, and they make me feel safe enough to just be myself. Then that's what gave me motivation to even do discipline, even improve myself in the ways that I want to improve myself too. So it's just as much as you can, try and surround yourself with people who will give you a chance, that actually care, people that are close enough to care. Even going to this new school of the arts, I wasn't overtly bullied, but at first I was still getting pretty ignored. That still made all the difference, though. And then gradually over time, I started making more and more friends. So as much as you can, stay surrounded by good people, by good influences, by people who lift you up. Because I know that kindness saved me, and passion saved me, and when you have room to do those things, you can thrive if you're someone like me. So that's what I would say.
And there you have it. Adin, I have to tell you, you are a star, literally, and a star in the making as well. There's so much that you have yet to achieve, and I couldn't be more excited for you. I feel like American Idol for you is only the beginning of so many more things to come. And I will say this right now as a public service announcement. If you are in those cities that Adin is going to be touring, do yourself a favor and go. He is incredible. If you thought that he was good on American Idol, wait till you hear him live, because he is as phenomenal as he is on the show. Adin, I have to thank you so much for coming on today. You are always more than welcome to come back to this podcast anytime you'd like, to talk about music. I know that music is a very common passion that we both have, and I would love to hear more of your thoughts about it in the near future.
My pleasure, man. Thank you so much for having me.
It is such an honor to have you. It really is. If all of you liked what you heard on this episode and you want to hear other episodes or stay tuned for future ones, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to this podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on YouTube. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode. I'm Devin Morrissey, and I'll see you right here next time on Autistically Unapologetic.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Autistically Unapologetic with Devin Morrissey. If you like what you hear and you want to see more, don't forget to rate and subscribe to stay tuned for future episodes. Again, thanks for listening.